Hi, I'm outside. This video is about black raspberries. I haven't decided yet if I'm going to do some kind of introduction video for this channel, but just for the record, this is the first video I've filmed for this channel, so for now I'm just going to say this video is going to be about forageable plants and maybe mushrooms if I feel like it. I'm going to give some information, some facts, a third synonym for information, just about the plant, how to forage for it, where to find it, some history, whether it's based or cringe, that kind of thing. Let's just get into it. Black raspberries are an edible berry native to North America. Their range goes all the way from the east coast to not the coast, and then all the way up from a little bit of Canada to right before Florida. They don't like Florida. They're a bramble, so like most brambles, they grow in these big long canes as well as regular stems. They're covered in spikes, and they produce edible fruit, which is the only reason we care about them. There it is. That's a black raspberry. They've got this pretty roundish shape to them. They ripen from green to yellow and pink to bright red, and then finally they're ready to harvest when they're black. If you're not sure if what you see is a black raspberry or something like a blackberry or a dewberry, the easiest way to tell is to just pick one and then look at the inside. If it's hollow, it's a raspberry. Raspberries are always hollow, whereas something like a blackberry is going to keep its core. Black raspberry will leave the core on the plant. Shout out to any viewers who just found out that blackberries and black raspberries are two different things. You can leave a comment talking about that if you want. I'm not going to read it, but you can. There's not really any danger in misidentifying them anyway. It's a compound berry. All compound berries are edible in America except for the one, but if you see it's a weird one. It's just assume that if you see a compound berry, just assume it's edible. It's just, you can assume. Of course, being native to North America, they have a history of being foraged for by native North Americans. They ate them fresh, dried them for stored food, cooked with them. They turned them into pemmican, which is a kind of nutrient-dense food that's made from fruit and tallow and meat. It's very, very important for surviving harsh winters as well as just like traveling food. These berries are surprisingly nutritious, despite kind of tasting like candy. Calcium, iron, anthocyanins, fiber, vitamins. It's a fruit, of course it has fiber and vitamin C. For the most part, this is a foraged food. You will occasionally find them cultivated. Every once in a blue moon, you'll see them in a farmer's market. I've never seen them in a grocery store, but I'm sure that it happened at some point. In particular, I think Oregon is a state that produces them a lot, which is funny because they don't even grow naturally there. Well, they do now just because, you know, birds eat fruit and then the poop and then the seeds in the fruit and the poop, you know what I'm talking about. But do they taste good? Yes, they're pretty up there as far as forageable fruits go. They're really worth the trip if you have a bush near you. The flavor is somewhere in between a wineberry and a very ripe blackberry. It beats out pretty much every other berry in terms of flavor and texture. Although it is a little bit inconsistent. Every once in a while you run into a plant that's just, the flavor is just not very good. It's very watery, very dry. For the most part though, they're a very delicious, delicate berry. They've got a little bit of crunch to them. When they're fresh, they're super refreshing. Highly recommend. I generally don't like rating things on a scale of 1 to 10. I think it's a pretty ineffective way to judge the quality of something, especially as complicated as like a food item. Like, am I comparing this to all foods or just like berries or just fruit or just forageable foods? Because it's not really fair to put this on the same level as a dandelion. Besides, different number ratings mean different things to different people. Like, I think a 5 out of 10 means average, whereas some people think a 5 out of 10 is equivalent to kicking somebody in the ribs. So I'm just going to forego that system entirely and then only consider berries and assign it an Owl City album in place of a number score. So black raspberries get a maybe I'm dreaming out of 10, and if that was meaningless to you, just throw it up an A tier and let's move on. Plants themselves tend to spread out, so if you find one bush, then there's probably another bush somewhere nearby. Because of this, you know, they usually span a pretty decent area, so if you find some fruit, you can probably get a decent amount in a reasonable amount of time. But the trick is finding them. You know, I'm in Maryland, which is one of the best states to find them, but if you're in New England, good luck. A lot of the area that's ideal for the growth of black raspberries is also going to be ideal for other brambles, so oftentimes you'll find some territory that could be occupied by black raspberries is taken over completely by wineberries. If you don't know, wineberries are an invasive plant native to Japan. They are just better at growing in every way, so they oftentimes will just take over any area that's occupied by other brambles. In fact, if you do find some territory that's occupied by black raspberries, there's a good chance that just looking around a little bit, you'll find some wineberry bushes there. They hog resources, they take a lot of sunlight and nutrients from the ground, and unfortunately, as a result, black raspberries are in decline across the continent. Even in Maryland, it took me an embarrassing amount of time to find a location to film this video. Just an absurd amount of wandering through the woods and following dead-end leads from iNaturalist. Finally, I found a decent patch of these things that's not directly next to a road. They're just not that common. All the more reason to be careful with the plants. When you're foraging, learn to recognize the plants even when they're not fruiting, and don't step on them like the bumbling oaf you are. Their leaves are green, in groups of 3, with very jagged edges and virtually no gloss. The center leaf is extended a little bit from the other two with a stem, and they're all roughly the same size. The stems are green as well, but they have this thin film of white powder on them. It is powder, you can rub it off, and the canes, well, they come in a variety of colors, but, you know, they're usually accompanied by the stems. Just don't step on the plants, okay? Remember that when you're in nature, You are not the main character, okay? You are just a guest, so be a good guest. You're gonna find some other critters out here that are maybe even enjoying the same food that you're enjoying. And if you see them, just let them have it, okay? They claimed it. The ripe berries are black all the way around, or with a slight ruby tint around the rim. They usually have a bit of white powder in between the drupelets, which, very reminiscent of what you see on the stems as well. When they're ripe, they come away pretty easily from the plant, so you shouldn't need gloves, just avoid the spikes. Sometimes when I see a berry that's right on the cusp of ripeness, but not quite ripe yet, very, very deep red, I'll still pick it and throw it in the mix. These berries are very tart, so if you like tart things like I do, it just adds a bit of zest to the mix. If you pick a berry and it's got this kind of weird yellowness on it, this is called rust. Rust is a kind of vague term. It actually refers to a bunch of different kinds of fungus. It's a bit like the word mold. None of the rusts are actually toxic to humans at all, so they're all completely safe, but they do impact the plant. They usually impact the entire plant, and it can make it harder for it to grow. Sometimes when I pick a particularly rusty berry, I'll just toss it. Again, it's not going to hurt me, but it makes the texture kind of and the flavor kind of blech, so it's just not worth putting in my berry collecting receptacle. A little bit is fine though. To find a good patch, there's not a great consistent way to find them. Like I said, they're pretty uncommon, but like most brambles, they grow best in partial shade, so a lot of the time you can just find them on the side of the road. So when can you harvest these things? That's important. For me right now, it's June 20th. That's pretty much peak harvest season for me here, and it's gonna obviously be later up north, earlier down south, but as a general rule of thumb, it's an early summer fruit. These started ripening the first week of June for me, but it takes a little bit for them to actually start ramping up and be in the full harvest. They have an earlier fruiting season compared to other berries. As you can see, there's wine berries and blackberries in this berry area, and neither of them are ripe yet. You're going to find berries at various stages of ripeness, and the berries grow fast. If you see a red berry, it's probably going to be black tomorrow or the next day. And as a result, the harvest season is pretty short. It's maybe 3 to 4 weeks at best. So if you see these, get them while you can. The end of their season is bittersweet, pun intended. As sad as it is to see them go, the end of this season signals the beginning of other berry seasons, which, I'll probably make videos about them when I can start picking them. For now though, be present, pick some berries. If you need to trespass in order to get to a berry plant, do it quietly. I'm not a cop. And don't forget to enjoy the nature. In my opinion, foraging is one of the best ways to remind yourself that you're human. Just take some time, put your phone away, disconnect from the algorithms that you're addicted to, and pick some berries. So that's the video. I'll probably make more of these. I picked up this foraging hobby about a year ago when I stopped fishing because I need an outlet to both get me outside and just like a thing to hyperfixate on. So I've been annoying my friends by talking about it constantly, and I guess now I can annoy the internet by talking about it constantly. If you like this video, cool. I don't know, I might make more. I got other stuff going on. Don't worry about it. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.